Hey y'all, it's Delaney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking you guys with me to do a live podcast taping in Chicago. So if you don't know, I am one half of the show Classically Black Podcast, which is a show about the intersection of classical music and Black popular culture. We've been releasing episodes every Monday since November 2018, and we're going to Chicago. So when I was in college, I didn't really have much of a Black community, which was really difficult for me because I came from a very strong and just established Black community where I'm from. And when I went to Detroit for a conference called Sphinx Connect, which is for Black and Latinx musicians, I met a couple people there. One of which was my friend Katie Brown, who actually was getting her master's degree at the school that I was at, and we had never met each other before. But we met in the Detroit airport. We talk about this story all the time, so it's like literally the 50-11th time I'm telling this story. But anyway, long story short, she was like, yo, we should start a podcast because a lot of Black musicians were not getting the chance to speak to and interact with each other and find that common ground outside of just a couple of industry-wide gatherings a year that not everybody even gets to go to. So from that, a bunch of people were sort of on the docket for being hosts of Classically Black Podcast, and people started dropping like flies, as people do when you start having to actually do some work. And so it ended up dwindling down to just me and Katie, which, you know, shout out to everybody who was a part of it at the beginning, but that's just a godsend. We have a great rapport. Classically Black has done well since the beginning. We're turning 5 years old this year in November 2023. And yeah, it's just been a blessing. So in September of 2022, we got a DM from someone that worked at Chicago Sinfonietta asking us if we would be interested in doing an event with them. And we were like, period, yes, absolutely. We would love to do that because we really want to grow the show. We want to start doing more things. And we were just excited to go. My co-host is from there. She's from Evanston. And yeah, I'd never been to Chicago. So we were like, yeah, we're down. So we've done certain types of live shows in the past, usually or pretty much always at a conference of some type that was an industry event. And it was always a show that was going on within a larger event. So because of that, we always had kind of a North Star to look to in terms of what we were going to talk about, how long the show was going to be, and all those different details. It was kind of always a theme that we could adhere to. But the way that this show was different was frightening for me, exciting for my co-host. But it was kind of just like we are the main event. There's nothing going on except our show. We can do whatever we want. I'm very type A, so that was freaking terrifying. I am team like I need a rubric. Tell me exactly what you want me to do. Like tell me the formula, like whatever, and I will execute that to a T. Like that's the type of person I am. So being given free reign to just like, girl, write a show, do a show. Yeah, I was going through it. But, you know, we entered the planning process and it was actually also very exciting to be given that freedom and to have that, you know, growth. So, how do we plan the show? After connecting over email, we hopped on a Zoom with their team over there just to get a feel of what they were looking for and just hammer out some details, really preliminary stuff, and just talk through what it would look like and get the final like, yes, we agree, yes, we're moving forward. And from then it went to me and Katie having internal conversations about how we were going to plan the show, and we eventually started to see an idea take shape that was kind of like a survey of Black classical music history. This was sort of a back and forth between us and them in terms of like, what can we do? What do we have access to? Will there be musicians there? Like, what is the space? What are the capabilities? And at some point we wanted it to be a little bit more free and not necessarily so like, I don't know, like history class sort of thing. So then you know, this was in February, and we were actually doing a Black History Month series on the regular podcast that had to do with Black musical spaces. So we talked about sorority and fraternity probate, we talked about the Black church, we talked about ciphers, and Jamaican Nine Nights, just Black spaces where music is an integral part. And so we decided this is going to be taking place at the end of the month. Why don't we actually change the theme of the show to fit that? So we were going to do Black musical spaces in Chicago. So we sat with that idea, and in the meantime, we had some more meetings about, you know, our fee and about tech, on the business side of it, what the audience would be made up of, or who rather the audience would be made up of, what was the venue gonna be like, would we be able to play music, would there be musicians accessible to us, all that sort of stuff. And after all of those meetings, I think there was a bit of anxiety starting to grow within the both of us about the theme of the show and the direction that we were going in. Like I said, we had never really had this much freedom before, and one of the difficult parts about planning this show is that we didn't really feel like we had a good, you know, gauge on who was going to be in the audience. And that is a really important thing for us, especially because we do not script our show. And actually, now that I think about it, I think it would actually be worse if we did script the show, because then we couldn't really make adjustments on the fly as we can, you know, the way that we currently do the show. But even so, it's really hard to plan a show that you've never done before. It's just going to be a completely original show, and not really know who's going to be in the audience. And especially when you're talking about music in the way that we are, classical music, because we try our best to be colloquial about it on the show, not be too esoteric, not throw out a whole bunch of like jargon and terminology, but you know, we also want to make sure that it's engaging for people who are well versed and people who are not. And to not know how much or if any of our audience was going to be made up of musicians or even people who like classical music, or you know, just kind of where they are, what their entry point is into classical music, was a little difficult. So this was, I don't know, maybe about a week or two before we were set to go out to Chicago. We decided, okay, we're gonna scrap everything, we're going to do a totally new concept, and just try to adjust our show so that it is I guess more entertaining to a wider audience, just because we don't know who's gonna be there. So with those last adjustments, we got the production schedule from their team. I'm not going to show that because it has people's information on it. But from that, we built an internal, meaning internal to just me and Katie, run of show that had all of the points that we were going to hit and the timings and all that sort of thing. We also found out a couple weeks before that we were going to have a quartet there. And so we also had to pick repertoire for them, do some suggestions and work with their library and see what they have and what we wanted, and kind of build that into the structure of the show as well. So with all of that done, a race to the finish, it was time to go to Chicago. So this was my first time in Chicago. It was a super quick trip, so I didn't really get to do anything around. So as for the venue of the show, we ended up having the show at Soho House, which, if you don't know, is sort of like a social club that they have in cities all around the world. So we had it at Soho House Chicago, which also has a hotel and a restaurant, and it's kind of like an all-encompassing thing. So we had the show there, but we also stayed there. So this is some footage of the room. You're actually not supposed to take video in Soho House. I guess that's a part of the exclusivity part of it. I didn't sign anything, so I was taking video regardless. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I tried to be a little conservative about it, you know, just so I wasn't, you know, disturbing anyone. But in the room when I walked in, they had classical music already playing, which is not because of who we are and what we were there to do. I think that's just like what they do to make it seem fancy. I cut that off immediately because that's not relaxing to me as a musician. That's gonna make my brain turn on, actually. But the room was super nice. It had all kinds of stuff in it. The bathroom had all these full-size bottles of shampoo and body wash, and it had like this whole kit. It had flip-flops, these plush rolls. It had all this skincare stuff. Yeah, it was really, really nice. It also had a ton of alcohol in the room, which I know you can call ahead and like whatever, and I guess if I were sensitive to that sort of thing, then I would do that. But I was showing it to like some of my family and stuff, and they were like, yeah, that is a lot, because like I don't stay in hotels a lot. But a lot of people in my family are flight attendants, so they do. So I was like, is this normal? I feel like this is not normal. And they were like, yeah, that's a lot. But even so, the mini bar was super stocked, just with food and drinks and alcohol and all that type of stuff. So it was really, really nice. Also, when I checked in, they gave us these big booty keys. Like, they had this huge, like 2-pound number on the key. Like, I don't know what that was about, but yeah. So on the first night there, I was actually on a deadline. I needed to get something done by, I think, what was it, like 8 o'clock that night. So I kind of hunkered down in my room. I decided that since I was staying in this nice hotel, I was gonna pretend like I was rich for this couple of days. So I ordered room service, which I don't think I've ever done before. So this is what I got. I got there sort of like a little before dinner time, so I got like dinner and then like a second meal together. So I got this salad, which was okay. It was a Caesar salad. It had some lemon on it, which was a little too citrusy for me. The burger was okay. I usually don't really do burger and fries together because it's too heavy, so I barely ate any of those fries. They were fine. The cookies were very, very good. So that's what I had for dinner, and I just basically worked for the rest of the night and went to bed. Fast forward to the morning. This is the day of the show, so I came in the day before. For the day of the show, it was basically just prep. I went over the production schedule on my own. I actually decided to turn on our very, not our first episode, our 100th episode, which is sort of a compilation of some of our favorite moments of the show. So I don't know, I don't really listen to our show in my free time anymore, but I just decided for whatever reason to turn that on because this was sort of a milestone in our time as a podcast. And so I don't know, I just want to reminisce while I went over the run of show, made some adjustments, made sure that I was prepared with my own personal notes. Then we decided to meet for lunch downstairs in the lobby restaurant, touch base and just make some clarifications between the two of us. And then we decided to go upstairs and check out the space. We also came across our picture in the elevator, which was super cool, not something I was really expecting to see. And also we came across the event board that had our name on it as well, to show members of the house like this is what's going on today or tonight. I also hadn't seen Katie in about 1.5 years in person. And so yeah, it was nice to catch up, and then we parted ways to go get ready, and I was on a really tight time crunch, but you know, I got it done. I don't know if I have any pictures of what my hair looked like. Actually, it looked like this basically, but even drier, if you could imagine. And so I had about an hour to wash my hair and get it slicked back into a ponytail, which, you know, I somehow accomplished in that amount of time. And then after that, I got dressed. I wore this dress by a Black designer named Terrell Dominic. So freaking cute. I loved it. And my boots are by Circus. I got them from Nordstrom. And yeah, I got dressed, and then I went upstairs to the space that we were going to be in to do a sound check. The string quartet that we had playing with us, or for us rather, we're sound checking up there, so we kind of just got settled in. We tested our mics, we tested the audio from the computer that we were going to be playing music out of occasionally. The chairs that we had were super high up, and my dress was like a one size fits most, really like a slinky material, so it was really riding up. And also Katie is very short, and she fell. I don't know if she gonna want me to say that, but she fell. No, she didn't fall. She didn't go down. Like, she didn't go down, but her chair did. It was funny. But regardless of that, like, you know, it was cool. And yeah, I think I have a picture of our setup here. It was kind of a small table, but like whatever, we had music stands. It was cute. It was a really, really, really nice room. And it was a really nice turnout. So yeah, how did it go? I think it went well. Overall, we had a great turnout. Like I said, Katie's from the area, so she had some people come as well to support us. And it was just a good Black time. We got some laughs, which was awesome. I think just overall, if I could change anything, I think we started off a little fast-paced and we ended a little slower paced than I would have liked. So like I said, we don't script the show. We planned the show, but it's not scripted. And so I think that if we were to build out the beginning and the ending a little better, it would have been perfect. You know, I think overall it was a really, really huge success. Oh, I didn't tell you guys what we actually decided to do. Like I said, before we left for Chicago, we actually ended up changing the entire show. So this is what we ended up doing. One of the core goals of Classically Black is to make classical music more approachable and more accessible to different types of people. And so we decided to sort of do a survey of how we've done that over the years. We talk about our own backgrounds, how we got into classical music, to sort of just show that our background is not so different from, you know, anyone else. And then we sort of highlighted some of the different aspects of our show that we've done, like our Trifling Music History series, where we take stories in music history and we colloquialize them, we make them funny, we make them interesting, and like we're not changing no facts or anything, but the delivery is much more approachable than reading a music history textbook. We also talked about something that we did called Put Me On, where we talked to people who are not classical musicians. We talked to them about the music that they like, and then we recommend classical music to them based on those interests. That is something that we did with a couple of our family members and close friends a couple years ago, and we really want to revive Put Me On at some point. But we talked about that and we gave some examples of how we did that. We played some musical examples and it was really cool. We played some Stevie Wonder, we played some stuff from Issa Rae's show Rap Shit, we played some Rachmaninoff, we played some Beethoven, I think. So, and then we also had, we played some Bad Bunny. The quartet was playing some William Grant Still, who's a Black composer. So yeah, there was a lot of variety there. And then we also talked about another segment that we've done a couple times on the show called It's Not High Art, Beloved, which is talking about how classical music is not necessarily high art. It is, you know, it's a beautiful art, but it's not something that inherently is better than other types of art and other types of music. And in that series, we basically teach a non-classical musician, someone who is not classically trained, we teach them a classical music concept using popular music. So for example, in the live show we did a demonstration, which was basically the difference between capital C classical music, which is the classical era of music, and the Romantic era, which comes right after classical. And classical era is like late 1700s to like kind of mid 1800s, and you know, Romantic is like, you know, late 1800s, mid to late 1800s, whatever. Don't listen, I got my degree, don't come for me, I don't know the exact dates, but we kind of narrowed that down in the show, but that was last month at this point. And yeah, we played some musical examples demonstrating some of the characteristics that separate classical from Romantic, the orchestra getting larger, more dynamic contrast, and a more a broader dynamic spectrum, more harmonic complexity, more rhythmic complexity, the themes that come with romantic music, and that sort of thing. So yeah, we kind of extracted the parts of our show that are most accessible, and just to show how we have taken our upbringing in classical music and try to invite more people in using that. And I think that the audience was very receptive to that, so that was great. After the show, they gave us a $500 tab at the restaurant, so we went over there. We was ordering up a storm. We had this amazing waiter. He was amazing in the fact that he was interesting and nice to talk to. We actually had this moment with him where, you know, he was just a Black guy from the south side of Chicago, and he was saying like, oh, y'all had it turned up over there, like, because the restaurant was on the other side of the wall from where we were doing the show. He was like, yeah, you guys had it turned up over there. We started talking about classical music. And he was like, yeah, you know, it's cool that y'all are involved with that, but like, you know, it's not really for people like me. And I was like, man, like that really, I was really sad, like really my worst nightmare to hear, because that's just one of the goals that we have for Classically Black, is so that people don't feel that way. So that really let us know that we have more work to do. But, you know, it was nice that we were able to sort of, you know, combat that idea in his head and, you know, just have a nice ending to our night and let him know that that's not necessarily true. So, with all that being said, we recorded the episode so that we could put it out on streaming for the people who were not able to be there to be able to get there, which, by the way, most of the people there, I believe, were members of Soho House, but we also had some, you know, other people come and guests and things like that, by the way. And when we got home, Katie texted me, because it was her turn to edit the episode, that the audio was unusable. So, in typical Classically Black fashion, we do not miss episodes willy-nilly. We literally got on the mics at 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning and recorded a recap of the entire show. So that is out on streaming if you would like to listen to it and learn or hear more in depth about how the show went, and just how the trip was in general. That is out on all streaming platforms wherever you get podcasts. But yeah, you know, if you have a bag to offer and you work somewhere that wants to do a live show with Classically Black, let me know. classicallyblackpodcast@gmail.com. That's how you can get in contact with us. But yeah, overall, Chicago was super fun, and we've been invited back next year, so we're excited to do that. If you're in Chicago, keep an eye out for us in 2024. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to keep up with me, these are my social media handles. You can also subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so you can get a notification every time I get off my butt and post a video. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you next time.